For weeks, a little girl from across the street waved at me day and night. I couldn't shake the haunting look in her eyes. When I finally went to see who she was, nothing could have prepared me for the heartbreaking truth waiting behind that door. Every evening I would watch this little girl from my window. She was always there, a small, petite figure no older than 5 standing by the window, her tiny hand waving at me. Her eyes, fixed on mine, held an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Who was she? What did she want from me? I turned to my wife, Sandy, who was curled up on the couch with a book. Babe, she's there again. The girl I told you about. Sandy looked up, her brow furrowed. The one who's always waving at you. I nodded, feeling a pang of sorrow. Yeah. There's something. I don't know. Something in her eyes. It's like she's trying to tell me something. Sandy set her book aside and joined me at the window. Oh, Arnie, she said softly, placing a hand on my shoulder. Maybe she's just a lonely kid. Have you tried waving back? I shook my head, my eyes still fixed on the little figure across the street. No, I can't explain it, Sandy. It feels like more than that. Like she's calling out to me. Sandy's grip on my shoulder tightened. Honey, you're scaring me a little. It's just a kid waving. Don't read too much into it, okay? I tore my gaze away from the window and forced a smile. You're right. I'm probably just overthinking things. As I pulled the curtains shut, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was turning my back on something important. That night, sleep eluded me, my dreams haunted by the image of the little girl crying out for help. Don't leave me, she sobbed in my dreams. Please, don't go. I woke up in a cold sweat, Sandy's concerned face hovering over me. Arnie? Are you okay? You were talking in your sleep. I sat up, my heart racing. I don't know. That girl. She was in my dreams. She was crying. Sandy's eyes widened with worry. Maybe we should talk to someone about this. A therapist, maybe. I shook my head. No, I think I need to do something. I can't keep ignoring this. At the break of dawn, I woke up exhausted. My head was pounding from last night's nightmares. The aroma of freshly made pancakes wafted up from the kitchen, but even the promise of my favorite breakfast did little to lift my spirits. I trudged downstairs, where Sandy greeted me with a steaming cup of tea and a plate of golden pancakes. Rough night. I nodded, taking a sip of the hot tea. Yeah, couldn't shake off those dreams. As I finished my breakfast, I was drawn to the window again. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the little girl standing there. She waved at me the moment our eyes met. Her tiny outstretched hand seemed to pull me towards her like a moth drawn to a flame. I set down my cup with a clatter. That's it. I'm going to talk to her parents. I can't take this anymore. Sandy's eyes widened. Arnie, are you sure about this? I nodded, my eyes fixed on the building across the street. I have to know, Sandy. I can't explain it, but I feel like she needs me. She's getting creepy. She waved at me the same way last night. What does she want? I don't get it. Sandy came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. Just be careful, okay? And call me if anything feels off. I turned and kissed her forehead. I will. I promise. The walk across the street felt like the longest journey of my life. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached the building, my palms sweaty as I pressed the buzzer for the apartment I'd seen the girl in so many times. There was a long pause, and then a woman's voice crackled through the intercom. Yes? Who is it? Hi, I'm Arnold from across the street. I wanted to talk to you about your daughter. Another pause, longer this time. Then, the door buzzed open. A woman stood in the doorway. My heart stopped the moment I saw her. Juliet, I whispered, hardly believing my eyes. She nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. Hello, Arnie, it's been a long time. Before I could respond, a small figure appeared behind Juliet. The little girl. She looked up at me, her eyes wide and hopeful. "Daddy," she chirped. I felt like I was on a boat in a storm. I gripped the door frame to steady myself. What did she say? Juliet stepped aside, ushering me in. "Come inside, Arnie. We have a lot to talk about." I sank onto the worn couch, my head spinning. Juliet sat across from me, her eyes brimming with tears. "Arnie, do you remember that weekend at the lake house? 6 years ago." I nodded, memories flooding back. Our last weekend together before. Before we broke up, she finished. What I didn't know then was, I was already pregnant. My head snapped up. What? But how? Why didn't you tell me? Juliet's tears spilled over. I tried, Arnie. God, I tried. But you'd moved out of town and changed your number. It was like you'd vanished. I had a right to know. I choked out, my eyes stinging. I know. I was young and scared. By the time I worked up the courage to really look for you, years had passed. I thought it was too late. The little girl, whom Juliet called Heidi, sat silently in a corner, her eyes never leaving my face. My daughter. The word echoed in my mind, foreign, terrifying, and wonderful all at once. When did you move here? I turned to Juliet. A few months ago. I got a job transfer. When I saw you through the window that first day she trailed off, her eyes distant. I told Heidi you were her father. I thought maybe it was fate giving us another chance. But then I saw you with someone. She's my wife, Sandy. A long silence. Then I stood up abruptly, my mind reeling. I need to go. I need to think. Heidi's face crumpled. Daddy? Are you leaving? The word struck me like a dagger to my heart. I knelt down in front of her, my heart breaking at the fear in her eyes. I'll be back, sweetheart. I promise. I just need some time, okay? She nodded solemnly, and I felt a surge of love so strong it nearly knocked me off my feet. As I left the apartment, Juliet called after me. Arnie? I'm sorry. For everything. I couldn't bring myself to respond. The walk home was a blur. I found Sandy waiting anxiously by the door. Arnie? What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. I collapsed into her arms, the tears finally breaking free. Between sobs, I told her everything. About Juliet, about Heidi, and about the daughter I never knew I had. Sandy listened in stunned silence, her arms tight around me. When I finished, she pulled back, her eyes searching mine. What are you going to do? She asked softly. I shook my head, lost. I don't know. I have a daughter, Sandy. A little girl who's been waving at me and trying to reach me. How do I just walk away from that? I'm just as shocked as you are, Arnie. But we need to be careful. You can't just take everything Juliet says at face value. What do you mean? We should get a DNA test first. Just to be sure, Sandy said, squeezing my shoulders. The next day, I stood at Juliet's door again. When she opened it, I blurted out, Juliet, I think we need a DNA test. Her face instantly hardened. What? You think I'm lying? You just found out you have a child and you're already doubting me? You're unbelievable, Arnie? I just want to be certain before I commit to anything. I tried to explain, but she slammed the door in my face. Dejected, I returned home and shared what happened with my mother. She listened quietly, then asked for Juliet's address. I wasn't sure what my mom said to her, but the next day Juliet called. Hey, Juliet here. I got your number from your mother. I've thought about it and understand. We can do the DNA test. I sighed with relief. Thank you, Juliet. I appreciate it. When I told Sandy, she wasn't thrilled. I love you, Arnie. God help me, I do. And I'll stand by you through this. But I'm scared. I just hope this doesn't change anything between us, she sobbed as I pulled her closer, my eyes brimming with tears. The next few weeks were an emotional roller coaster, each day bringing a new wave of anxiety, hope, and fear. When the DNA test results finally arrived, my hands trembled as I opened the envelope. The words blurred before my eyes, but one phrase stood out in stark clarity: 99.99% probability of paternity. My heart raced. Heidi was my daughter. But a small part of me, the part still reeling from this life-altering revelation, whispered doubts. What if there was a mistake? I couldn't bear the thought of embracing this new reality only to have it ripped away. So I took another test and endured another agonizing wait. The second results came back, also positive. Tears streamed down my face as I called out to Sandy. It's true, I sobbed on her shoulders. She's really mine. My daughter. Dead silence, then, oh Arnie, I'm here for you. For both of you. Sandy and I visited Juliet's apartment, where Heidi greeted me with a cry of "Daddy" and threw herself into my arms. As I held her, I looked at Sandy, afraid of what I might see in her eyes. But she was smiling through her tears, her hand reaching out to smooth Heidi's hair. She's beautiful, Sandy whispered. Juliet watched us, joy and sadness brimming in her eyes. I never meant to complicate your lives, she said. I just wanted Heidi to know her father. I nodded, understanding flooding through me. I'm glad you did. I'm glad I know her now. As we left that day, Heidi clung to my leg. You'll come back, right, Daddy? I knelt down, looking into those eyes that were so like mine. Of course I will, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. On the walk home, Sandy laced her fingers through mine. So we're parents now, huh? I squeezed her hand. Looks like it. Are you okay with this? She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. We've been trying to have kids for 2 years now, but it hasn't happened. It's not how I imagined it happening. But yes, I think I am okay. As we reached our front door, I pulled Sandy into a hug. I love you. Thank you for being so amazing through all of this. I love you too. And Arnie? I think you're going to be a wonderful father. That night, as I stood by our window, I saw Heidi waving from across the street. But this time, instead of fear or confusion, I felt only love. I waved back, my heart full to bursting. Maybe this wasn't how I'd planned to become a father. Maybe it wasn't the path I would have chosen. But as I stood there waving at my daughter, I knew with absolute certainty that it was the path I was meant to be on all along.